Okay, so this next topic, as I just was emphasizing, don't do this on the project part 4, the work you're submitting this week. I need to be able to click the links and see that all the proper protections are in place. But as we just discussed, it's very important going forward. We don't want to irritate users by having links all over the place that they click on and only be told they aren't allowed. It's better if we just hide them in the real world. So next term when you're doing an application, perhaps based on the exact same tools you've been learning to use this term, it's actually set up properly for them, right? Okay, so just a quick reminder of the authorization requirements for our overall project here. Let me just bring this over to the main screen here. Yeah, so this is what we had talked about, and that's what we have in our controllers, right? So this will be helpful to refer back because it's a quick way to summarize visually here in this table, who should be able to do what in the overall system, right? Okay, so we'll be referring back to this a few times as we go forward, right? The other PDF file I have up there, I just want to use it to guide our discussion for the next minute or two here. As I say, best practice, right? Don't display options that they're not going to be authorized to do. It's better to hide them in the real world, okay? Just really, really important. Hiding links does not provide even the slightest protection against a user abusing your application or doing something that they are not allowed to do, because there are always ways for them to come up with a URI or URL, whatever you like to say, to try and get around the links and actually try to do something they shouldn't be allowed to do, right? So once more, I'll emphasize the real protection is from everything we put in the controllers, right? The authorized attributes, etc., right? Okay. Now, that being said, we don't want to tempt them to click something that they're just going to be told they're not allowed to. So we're going to discuss a couple of approaches. Most of this work is usually done in the view, sometimes in the controller as well. But in the view, we can simply add some decision structures, right? So just as a quick example here, right? We're going to do our own demo in a few minutes, but just to talk about these ideas first, right? We can restrict, okay, what links there are visible, okay, to do the different CRUD operations. And we can even do right in each row as we're looping through all the items in a model, if that model's an IEnumerable and so on and so forth, right? So as I say here, suppose only authenticated users in the admin role can delete. Well, you could simply do something as shown on the screen here. You could have a little if, a decision structure, if the user is in role admin, right? Just a note there, if they're in admin, though, we also know that they're authenticated, or they couldn't be we couldn't know that they're in the admin role. So that takes care of that aspect as well, right? And only in that case do we show our delete, okay, link, right? Now, of course, the real protection, they might be able to go up to the URI, go /delete, / if they know the item ID of the record they want to try and delete, they could try to cheat and get around the fact that there is no link, right? But at least this cleans up the screen and doesn't tempt an innocent user, okay, who's not trying to be bad, right, from being tempted to click on the link, okay? And of course, don't forget that we can just check if someone is authenticated as well, right? So, if it's a situation where we have a decision to make for either role, okay, if they're either admin or supervisor, then they should be allowed to delete. Well, you can still do that just with an or in your logic, okay? Remember, is in role, that operator only allows us to test a single role at a time, right? So that's a restriction there. So one of the ways around that is to just use an or to see if they're in either of these two roles that are allowed. And as I mentioned, checking if the user is authenticated, that's another thing that we can do. That way we can just see, have they even logged in? Okay, have they authenticated so we know who they are, regardless of whether they're in a role or not, right? So just, similar code can be used right in our layout to decide what menu options in the menu system should be available. So unless they're authenticated, well, then we might have very few choices for them to actually be able to click on in the menu system, right? And only when they're authenticated, then we can go further and decide to present different links to click on depending on what role they're in and so on and so forth. So that's the one basic approach. The simple decision structures, okay, your preferred decision structure is fine. You can use switches or ifs, if else, and so on and so forth. However you like to put it together, that can work. But I did want to share another approach, okay, and we'll look at doing this in our demo today as well. Return a different view, right? Depending on the authorization of the user who's currently logged in. Because you can easily imagine that, writing this kind of code, I mean, we're only talking in our simple medical office example, we have basically a supervisor, an admin, or a user. Okay, a user basically just is not in any of those roles, right? But what if you've got a whole bunch of additional roles and, there's all kinds of things going on, policies and so on as well. Okay, some of these ifs can get really big and ugly. These decision structures can be quite complex in that case. So in some circumstances, this approach has a real advantage, right? Basically what we do is we make multiple copies, multiple versions of a view, right? And we just go in and we edit it. And any links that aren't appropriate for a given group of users at a given level of authorization, we just take right out, right? And that way we can, in our controller, have a decision structure like this. If they're in an admin role, then we can return the version of our index view. We might have named it something like index admin, right? And that's the copy of the index view that we return. It probably, in this case, would have everything available, all the links to click on to try to do everything that they possibly, as an admin, should be allowed to do, right? And have a different version, okay, suitable for a different role, and so on and so forth. And our else here is the version that an authorized user, because they have to be authorized to even get into this controller, we're assuming, right? But they can't do anything additional, okay? They're not in any role, so they come here, right? So they get the most dumbed down version of our index, right? Okay. Now, as I say here, we've rarely specified the name of the view in the past, right? We've usually just said return view. And the built-in naming convention that MVC uses, that, makes it so we don't normally have to. If you're in, for example, a doctor controller, when you say return view, it's going to be the doctor index, right? If you're in the index action, I should emphasize, right? But we have always had the option, it's been there, that we could always name the view specifically if we wanted to, right? Now to find it, of course, it's going to look in the corresponding views folder to go along with the actual entity that we're focused on in our controller, and so on and so forth, right? Okay, just a warning here. This sounds like, oh, this is so much cleaner and nicer than having all those decision structures hard-coded into our view. Because remember, in general, we want our views to be nice and simple, right? They should really just be a presentation of the data without a huge amount of code in them, okay? So this makes a very nice, clean, simple presentation of the information in different versions of the view itself. There is a downside, though, okay? If you're going to do this, you want to wait till you're pretty much done, right? Because now you've got 2, 3, or more copies of the view, right? And say you decide, oh, you know what? They want to make a change to the style of the table used to present information. Well, then you got to go into 2, 3, 4, or who knows how many copies and make sure you make exactly the same modifications to each one, right? So it becomes a real pain in the rear end, okay? Once you have multiple copies, if you have to do an update to anything about it, then you got to do it over and over again, right? Sometimes if it's quite a bit, you might just delete everything but maybe the admin view and just make new copies. Do your changes there and make new copies, right? But anyway, that's just an alternate approach that we can do in terms of getting the restrictions in terms of what is visible to the user themselves. Okay, any questions? I'll just check the chat window here. All right. Okay, well, we're going to actually go on. We've had a look at that. We've discussed this document. So I do have a copy-paste file. You have a copy of it here as well, and I'm going to use it as I go along, right? So what I'm going to use is our latest version of our medical office, and we'll add some code to hide and display options depending on the authorization level of the user, okay? So I'm going to start with the doctor index. Now, of course, they must be authenticated. Anyone can view the index itself. A supervisor can also view the details, but only the admin can do everything, right? And I'm just going to move this off to the side. So, basically, again, let me just bring this one back up. That's exactly what we see here. Looking at doctor, okay, the user can come in and see the index. If they aren't authorized, they can't get here at all. But if they're just a plain user, not in any of the other roles, then they can see the index. As shown, the supervisor, in addition, can see the details, and the admin can do everything. So that's what we're going to put in place with the bit of code we're going to do. So I have the medical office, the last version open. Now I'll confess something, just for the fun of it. The other day you might have noticed I put up a recording, just helping out with some tips here on how to do some of the things that were sort of a bonus challenge. Okay, well, actually not a bonus, just a required challenge, come to think of it, in Project Part 4. And one was that a user can't change their own role. So that, I'm not going to go through it again, but I just want to mention that I have the code in place in this copy of the solution. So when I get this posted at the end of the day, it will include that code as well. Remember, it was a matter of checking the current logged in user, right, to see if they match the user whose role is attempting to be changed here, and so on and so forth. Okay, all right. Just I'd mentioned that's there, but we're going to go into, as I said, mostly the doctor. So I can just come right down here to views, doctor, and index. So here is the index view. Now, the first thing we're going to deal with is the create. Who can create a new doctor? As we saw in our table there, you probably have that in front of you as well, only the doctor can do that. So we could fix this one very quickly if we just put a simple decision structure there. I'll just replace this code with if the user is enroll admin, right? Then we're going to show that create link, okay? Hang on one second. Okay, so that was one of the things, right? The create link. Now, the other actions, and really that's what it comes down to, the various CRUD operations. That's the links that we're concerned with. So in this particular view, we never got into doing cards or anything. We just have the table, right? So when we come down to the actual table itself, okay, we had this extra column at the end. The header is empty, but at the bottom we have our links here for edit, details, and delete, right? So what we're going to do is the details, okay, and of course the edit and delete, that is all those options are only available if they're at least admin or supervisor. So coming back up to the header here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to replace, okay, the actual TH tags here with well, basically the same ones, but just wrapped inside a decision structure. So if they're in the admin or the supervisor role, then we're going to allow this column, okay, the column heading to appear, right? The point is that if they're not in either admin or supervisor, this whole column is going to disappear off the screen. We won't even see the column, okay, making more room for everything else, right? So whatever we do in the head, of course, we want to match that same logic in the body of the table, in the table data tags, right? So what we could do down here is we're just going to actually replace the last TD here, right? So everything from, well, I'm going to do it right to here. Oh, I copied the wrong bit of code. Hang on, I just didn't get it yet. Undo. Okay, so that ends the last table data. Then we have, let me just try get my indentations fixed up. So there's a couple different ways you could put this together, but I usually find this is the cleanest. I could do a decision structure if they're in admin or supervisor and show the details link, and then go on and only if they're in admin, show the other two links. But you know, sometimes it's 6 of one, half dozen the other. I find this is usually a bit cleaner. Right? If they're in supervisor, well, then these are the links that are going to be inside the table data tag, right? Just the details, right? If they're admin, then they get the edit, the details, and delete. Now, the exact same links that were there before. I haven't changed the links at this point at all, right? It's just whether or not they're going to be visible. But the other point here is if neither of these ifs are true, if they're not supervisor or admin, then notice the table data tags are inside the ifs, right? The if structure. So once more, just a regular user will not have any, the column will not be present whatsoever. The table will be minus this column altogether. So let's actually just give this a run so far and see the effect. Just take a moment here. Okay, we're just about up and running. Just about. Or is it up and I'm just not? Oh, here we are. Okay. So I'll have to log in, of course, right? Okay, I'll log in as admin first. Now, at this stage, what I should see is everything like normal. This is exactly the same look to the index as it was before I even started all these changes I'm making. I have my create link is here. I have my edit, my details, delete, all that good stuff is here, and away we go back to the doctor list like normal. Okay, I'm going to log out, log back in now as supervisor, my super at outlook.com. Now when I come to doctors, what do we see is there's only the details link. So the column is here, but the only link available is details, and you notice the create is now gone as well, right? So I'll just log out, log back in this time as user, and when I come to doctors, there we go. That column is completely gone, right? I should have had a few documents here so that you see there's something. But you know, there would be documents listed if I'd bothered to upload any. I just never thought of doing that, right? So this is totally clean because I'm only a user. I'm not in any role, right? I can see the doctor index. I can page through, away I go, right? All this information is available to me, but I can't go any further. I can't click any of those links because they're not there. Now, mind you, right, if, let me just come back here. If I were to go to /details /2, I'm guessing there's a doctor ID 2 maybe, then you see I'm getting my access denied, right? So yeah, just the fact that the link isn't there does not give any real protection because I could try to circumvent the system, right, if I know how to do it. So the real protection, once more, I'd like to emphasize, is in the actual controllers themselves. Okay. Okay, well, let me just stop running for now. Now, that's the one solution, right? I just thought I'd show an alternate approach because really we just inherited the design that was there. But earlier on in the course, we've been playing around with different approaches to actually having our links anyway. So I wanted to just kind of play around with this a little bit more. Let's do an approach using graphic buttons instead of having those links, right? And we're also going to move the create link, as we've done in some other views, in the header of that column. We have that one special column where all of our CRUD operation links go, right? So let me just actually remove this completely. We won't need it at all, okay? That's not where the create link is going to go. Instead, here in our TH, what we're going to do is we're going to actually replace it with a bit more code. Now, if they're a supervisor, we're still just going to have the TH, right? That's all we'll actually have there is the empty TH tags. But if they're an admin, then they have access to our create. So I'm going to throw a button here for creating, but it's going to have that little plus sign beside it, and we'll have a tooltip. So it says create new using the controller friendly name. So it should be create new doctor in this case, right? So that'll just be a different look to our create approach. And to go along with that, we'll come down into the table rows, right? And I'll get my code here in place to do a similar arrangement with just a different style of buttons, basically. So to get my copy and paste region just right, I'll grab right from there to there. So if they're a supervisor, then they just get the details link, right? But I'm just showing it with more of a button, okay, with just a certain icon on it. We'll see that in a moment, okay? But we'll have a tooltip. You can hover over it, and it'll say doctor details, right, using the controller friendly name. Now, if they're admin, then they get our normal 3, right? So we do get our edit, our details, and our delete links are all there, right? So let's just see how that looks. There's nothing new in this code. We've done this kind of graphic look to these CRUD operations in the past, but I just thought I'd share that as an alternate way. Okay, so I'm in still as user, so naturally I don't see anything, right? None of it's here, right? Let me log in. Maybe I'll do it first as supervisor. We'll work our way up the authorization chain here, going back to doctors. And here's my details link, right? So I can click that and go to the doctor details, back to the doctor list, and away we go. Okay, and notice everything. So like if I'm on page 3 and I click the details for this particular doctor, when I go back to the doctor list, even no matter what I've done here, right, back to the doctor list, I go back to the same page I left and so on and so forth. All right, one more time. Let's come in as admin, coming to the doctors. And now I see my create new doctor link, Okay, that's fully functional, and all the others are here. So details, edit details, delete, and so on. So I just thought I'd share that with you. But basically, whether you stick with the normal looking links or go with something like this, the control is all in place in the controllers. We're just deciding what is visible for the user to click on in the UI itself. Now let's talk about patience, right? This is a little bit more complex situation here. I'm going to actually do a little bit of work here. Let's get a graphic file. Okay, so we just have a image there and so on. Right, so there we go. So I've got my normal approach. Everything is visible right now. I haven't added any further restrictions. Now I'm in as admin, right? If I come back in as just user, for example, I can come to the patient index, but here all the links are there for me to click on, right? And of course I won't be allowed because access is denied for someone who's not in the correct role to be authorized to do it, right? So we're going to look at, though, I mean, there's an awful lot going on in this page because remember, okay, let me just shrink this down. We have the code in there. We switched completely from this table to a series of cards, right? That's what we're doing right now. So there's links in the cards, there's links in the table, there's links all over the place. So yeah, we could do it with ifs just like we did, but this is a good opportunity to demonstrate that other method altogether that I talked about, right? So let me just stop running altogether. Let me just close that up. Okay, so we're talking now about the patient controller and the patient index, right? So if I come down here, here's our index as it is right now. And as I said, like there's a lot of code in here because we do everything, you know, with the cards and we do it all over again with the table and so on and so forth, right? So we could really throw in a lot of decision structures, or instead we could do this. I'm going to right-click the index. I'm going to say copy. Now here's a bit of a trick to know so you get it right. I'm going to right-click on the actual folder, okay, the views patient folder, and paste. I'm going to do it again because I need 3 versions of this index. Okay, so they get named copy and copy 2 and so on, right? Now right now they're still all identical. So I'm going to pick whichever one I want, okay? Maybe I'll start with this one. And I'll just rename it index admin. The next one, I will rename index supervisor. And one I will just leave as index, right? Now still, they're all the same. I haven't changed them. So I'm going to make the modifications to match the exact requirements that we have. So let me bring that up again. So here with patients, okay, remember the user can view the index, nothing else, right? The supervisor can do everything except delete, and the admin, of course, can do everything in terms of the actual index for the patients themselves, okay? So basically my index admin, I'm done. There's nothing to change. Everything is accessible, and if I'm here because I'm an admin, it's exactly how I would want it to be. Good, we're done with that one. Okay, so let's go on to the next. Index supervisor. Well, everything should be available with the exception, right? With the exception of delete. So I just find the spots where there's a link for delete. So here is my card, right? Coming down to the bottom here in the card. Okay, here's my edit, index, delete. All I need to do is take out the whole delete. That's it. Simple, clean. I just remove the link. Coming down further where we have the data presented in the table, if the screen is large enough to do so, exactly the same thing. I just take out the delete. Simple as that. Okay, I'm done with that one. I'll close that up. Now let's get to the bare bones index. Okay, this is the one for a user who's logged in, right? This guy here, they can see the index but nothing else, right? So here, no, don't need this create. That's something they're not allowed to do anyway. Come down here to the cards. Here are all the links in the footer. Now, I could take out the footer completely, or it's entirely up to you, or I could just empty it. Right? I think for now, I'll just, I don't want to take out the div. There we go. All right, so I'll just empty out the footer itself. Coming down to the tables. You know what? Hey, I don't even need the column, right? I'll take out the TH tag for this last column. I'll take out the whole column here completely, and that's it. So that's good for the index for a user who's logged in but not in any role. So how do I make sure they get the right version? Well, that is done in the controller. Coming up here to the patient controller then, right, going down to the bottom of the index, right down here, we've got our page data all ready to go, okay? So all I really need to do is decide which particular version of our index I'm going to display. So instead of just simply saying return view, I'll put in my decision structure. So if they're in the admin role, I'll return the index admin version. If they're supervisor, I'll give them the appropriate version there. My else, okay, if they're neither of those, then they just get my plain dumbed down simple index version. And I don't even have to name it because I'm in the index action of the patient controller, so it will go to the patient views folder and find the index action, right? Okay, now let's just test this out. We'll come up here, so I'll log in. Okay, we'll start with the user, right? I'll click login. Now I can come to the patient index, but you see there's no create link. That whole column at the end is simply gone. Now let's just check if I bring it down into a smaller screen size. Eventually I'll switch over to my cards, but you see the footer is empty. There's no way to tempt me to actually do anything in terms of CRUD operations on the patients themselves. Perfect. That's exactly what I needed. I'll log out, log back in as super. Coming to patient. We have our create link. We have edit and details, just as I would expect. And just to confirm, down here in the card, I have edit and details. Once more, we'll come in to the admin. And then we also have our delete link as well, right? I'm sure you want to delete, and away we go. Okay, so that is another very valid approach as a method to get this actually done. And yeah, the only thing left at this point in time I really want to talk about is our menu system. Because right now, yeah, sure, I'm in it as admin, so I should see everything. But, you know, when I'm in here, for example, as just a user, right, there's only a couple things I should be able to do. I should be able to go to patients, and I should be able to go to doctors. But none of these, okay, should I be able to actually navigate to. So that's the last one we're going to take some time, is we're going to deal with the actual index itself, okay? All right, so let me just come down here to the layout, which we know is in Views, Shared, Layout, right? Okay. So right now we have our nav system set up. We have the patient's link for the patient's controller sits on its own, okay? And then the next is our drop-down list, right? Where we simply have our doctor, lookup, and et cetera, all the way down through. So what we need to do is we need to actually get things in place, right? I hate to mess it up, so I'm going to replace this entire div, okay, with the one I have in my copy paste. Otherwise, if I try to do it a bit at a time, I'll mess it up. But really, we're not taking any code out here. We're just adding decision structures to the whole thing. Okay, so first thing we do, come in and we check, have they even authenticated? So you can land, right, on our site. Okay, you can come to the overall home index here, and you'll have the necessary menu that you are entitled to have. In other words, if you're not authenticated, there's nothing there to click on except for your login and register links at this point in time, right? And that's about it, okay? So if they're authenticated, yes, even anyone who's simply authenticated has access to the patient, right? And we're going to show the next link over, okay, our drop-down, okay, the office menu. And they can come in here and they will see this one. This is the link for doctors, right? Good. So that's available to everybody. To go beyond that, they have to either be in the admin or supervisor role, right? Then we have all the same ones I had there, my lookups, my appointments, all the different reports and so on and so forth, okay? They'll all be there. But then I have a further test, okay, if they're actually in the admin role, All of this is available if they're in either admin or supervisor. But if they're actually an admin, then I'm going to put another divider, and then I'll have my user role controller, right? Okay, so that should fix up the issue of showing choices in the menu which are inappropriate. So let's just run it here one more time. Okay, so let me log out. So here, this is the nice clean, hey, I'm just come, I haven't logged in. Notice that there's nothing here, right? I can click this, brings me right back to this. Okay, good. Now if I log in, I'll log in as user. Then I can see patients, but of course I can now get the index view that has all the links for actions removed, right? Under Office menu, the only choice here is doctors, because yes, I'm allowed to see this read-only version of the doctors, right? Now, of course, there's a lot of functionality here still. Like I can filter, okay, by doctor. I can apply that. I can, page through if there are pages to see and so on and so forth. So there's lots of functionality here, right? If I need it, because I, as an authenticated user, am allowed to view all this information that's on the index about the doctors. Now, anything hidden on the details view, okay, for example, history of appointments and things like that, well, that's all off limits for me, right? But if I log in now as supervisor, then not only do I have patients, of course, now I also can go to the details, for example, right? And I can go to doctors, but I can also do all the other things that a supervisor is allowed to do, right? Check the appointments, et cetera, get my different reports and so on, right? One thing that's missing, assigning users to roles, because that is strictly, in our configuration here, the responsibility of the admin. So logging in as admin, that additional maintain user roles is here. Now, just for fun, I just wanted to show you, I have the edit link always available, okay? Notice there's only one here for admin. Why? Because that's me, right? Because, let me bring that up again. Remember we had that discussion the other day. Let me just come down here. User role, index, okay? So, yeah, the actual link to edit is hidden if I am the logged in user. But I left this there so I could at least show you that I can try to click on it, right? So let me come back again to the browser. So I'm admin. I shouldn't see this, but I can. But when I click it, there's that code coming into play. You cannot change your own role, and we disabled the save button, right? So yeah, there's no way that I can actually do it. But if I left it there so I could click on it and show you. If I take this back out, because it really shouldn't be there, let me just do a hot reload. Okay. So now you see, edit only shows up. I'm here because I'm admin, right? Otherwise I couldn't even be here, but I cannot even be tempted to try and change my own role. And that's another good thing to have that code in place as well. All right, well that pretty much finishes the demo. Let me just pause my recording here for a second.